90 Day Fiancé star Greg Chillak has been criticized for his lack of enthusiasm on the show. But has the New York man found a job now? Greg hails from Islip Terrace. Greg's partner, Joan Kruchov, is from Kampala, Uganda. Greg ended up visiting the country after becoming friends with a man who owned a safari company and invited the American man to Uganda. Greg saw Joan within the first hour and a half of his arrival in Uganda while checking into his guest house. Greg and Joan didn't stay in touch despite having a great conversation. However, Greg received a friend request from Joan a year and a half later. They began chatting, and he soon traveled back to Uganda to propose to Joan on her birthday. On paper, it looked like the perfect 90-day fiancé love story for Greg and Joan. While Joan had a bachelor's degree and was the director of an NGO, Greg was jobless and living in his mom's house, where Joan would have to follow some strict rules to survive. Greg's love for cooking began with him watching his Italian mom cooking various delicious meals at home. Greg wanted to put all his energy into making a bakery. He was seen distributing loaves of bread he had made to his friends, and, interestingly, he had left all of them unwrapped. However, Greg admitted that his work ethic could be a little whack sometimes. He wondered if it had anything to do with ADHD, but he admitted he was lazy. There had been a lot of times Greg would start a project and not necessarily finish it. Greg had still not given up on his dream of opening a bakery. He told the cameras that he was going to need to continue and push through it. His life had been turned upside down as it was no longer going to be just him when Joan came into the picture. Greg had to live with his mother for at least 1.5 to 2 years because he didn't have a job or a steady source of income to support a housing change. He also didn't like that his friends were rushing him to find a job. With every new confession Greg made about his future career plans, Joan strengthened her resolve to head back to Uganda. Greg was hell-bent on opening a bakery instead of finding a job or renting a house. He was disinterested in finding immediate work to break his spell of unemployment. Greg also thought of having 4 kids with Joan with no job in his hands. Greg even turned down a stable state job, citing a lack of passion. Meanwhile, Greg also had to pay dowry to Joan as per her culture. Joan had not told Greg about the dowry since she knew he was not financially stable. If he didn't pay, he'd be disrespecting Joan's family and her father's last wishes. Joan wanted Greg to man up because she declared she wouldn't marry him if he didn't pay the dowry. The situation was stressing Joan since America was the land of opportunities and Greg hadn't used it to his advantage. He wasn't taking work seriously. Joan loved Greg, but she was also ashamed of telling her family about the situation. However, Joan and Greg have gotten married as per online clues. An article by Greater Long Island from March 2025 confirms that Greg has found a job since he married Joan. He is now working as a freelance plumber. Greg also has a page for his bakery on Instagram called Dobro Bakery. He has been actively taking orders for Easter treats this time around. Greg has a variety of flavors and dessert loaves on offer, from cinnamon raisin swirl to dill and Havarti cheese. Joan has been helping Greg build his business from scratch, and the 90 Day Fiancé star even directed fans to her in case they wanted to place orders.